Hey everybody, welcome to 3D6 Charge, a podcast about competitive Warhammer 40k, the state of the game, and any community news. We're streaming live right now at Twitch/3D6 Charge every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, where you can follow and subscribe. We're also anywhere you can find podcasts such as Spotify or iTunes. This is episode 31, Adapting to a Shifting Meta. I am your host, Chris Vo, and joining me today is Kevin Lieb.
Howdy.
Benjamin Rubenstein.
Hey everyone.
And finally on time for once in his goddamn life, Omar Q.
There's a first time for everything.
Yes, there is. So, we've got some GT results that we want to talk about tonight, and it's going to play in very well to our overall topic of adapting to a shifting meta, because, as books come out, the meta is going to shift to incorporate, the new army, or whatever new rules come out, and how do you, pivot yourself to adapt to that? So before we move on to that topic, anybody want to bring up anything that they want to just touch on real quick?
For, other than this topic?
Yeah, for just whatever.
I think so.
I'm a little mad that I ordered my Death Guard Codex 2 weeks ago at a local and it still hasn't arrived.
I didn't order it. I have mine. I walked into a store a week ago.
They just never ship them to them.
I have a lot of questions about Kevin Lieb owning a Death Guard Codex.
Why, he owns Death Guard?
What? He literally doesn't?
I own 3,000 points of Painted Death Guard, Ben.
Do you really?
No.
No, but he's got.
I own one
three.
Nurgle Marine.
He's got at least 3 Death Guard.
My goodness, I've been bamboozled. If he owns 3,000 points of Death Guard, my goodness.
Kevin, can I trade you the Codex for stuff? I don't know. I just really want the Codex because I have 2,200 points of Death Guard.
That's 800 points less than Kevin has. You don't have a leg to stand on here.
Yeah.
2,200.
Yeah, no, that's 800. Kevin has 3,000. Didn't you hear?
This is like when you were giving the other two grief for being late to the pre-show, and you're almost never on time for this.
Don't gaslight me.
Anyway.
All right. Well, anyway, yeah, COVID's making GW have some issues getting stuff out.
Yeah.
I actually work for a retail store. I manage one. It's getting stuff is tough. Things are delayed. There's caps on everything. Everyone in the community knows that right now, though. It's just sort of something we got to struggle through with.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't really start seeing the struggles of it until people started trying to order Indomitus, and then stores were like, "We're only getting 2, but you can order all of them you want from GW."
Yep.
They did make good on that though, and make it right. But we're not talking about supply issues or COVID or other not fun things. We're here to talk about other not fun things. We're here to talk about playing against Death Guard. So the GT over the weekend was the over-the-top GT in New Zealand, and New Zealand is lucky enough to have events because they can follow guidelines, and I think nobody's wearing a mask on New Zealand anymore. Is that right?
Yep.
They went into quarantine. They went into quarantine at the beginning for 2 weeks. Do very little outside of New Zealand interactions, and yeah, they don't have to wear masks because they got over it actually 7 months ago.
Yeah, they just closed their borders and went into quarantine for 2 weeks, and turns out that's if everyone actually does it, goes away.
Holy shit.
So yeah, they can run full events. This was a 28-person event.
They have concerts too. But yeah, it was a 20-person event.
28. 28, so it was which I believe makes it an official GT. It's this is our first event that had more than, or our first GT size event that had more than one Death Guard list in it. And yeah, I think there were 4 Death Guard lists, and we're talking about it because 3 of the 4 lists made the top 4. And the last list was very obviously designed to be Death Guard, which is why it top 4'd. So I think it's probably important to talk about how Death Guard impacts the meta and what that does to everything.
Yeah, and just to ward off like the initial, oh, Morty is overpowered and that's why any of these lists won. Actually, one of those lists didn't even bring Mortarion, so the rest of the army has its own legs to stand on. It's just that Mortarion's, the
Amazing.
he is amazing, but I also want to say like he's like the easy like scapegoat to pick on. He's the easy boogeyman because he looks like
Yeah.
one.
And like the other thing we also have to point out, and Chris, you said that really well, in a meta where everything is about taking out 2 model units, and Death Guard has a specific rule that says "fuck you" to that.
I think you mean 2 wound models, but like yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a little tired, but yes.
Yeah, and it's the same reason why the past few Codex releases, the thing that we've always honed in on is, hey, check out these T5 3-wound models. You should bring all of them that you can, because it turns out that's pretty good when everything's trying to have 2 damage.
Yeah.
So you guys let's go over the lists real quick, just so that we can start seeing where these people are, going. So let me bring it up on my.
Yeah, let's talk about the 3 Death Guard lists first, and then we can talk about the Harlequin list, which actually got 3rd place, so it's not gonna be quite in order.
Yeah.
But
so this first list here is Mortarion's Anvil for Mortarion. Obviously, Mortarion's got to be the Warlord. He's got Gleaming Blow, Putrescent Vitality. He's got a Death Guard Vanguard detachment of the Ferrymen, which has a Loader Contagion HQ. Ben, you were saying something?
Yeah, just an important note. When you put Mortarion in a detachment, this is probably because they did these lists on Battlescribe. You have to give the detachment like a play company, but that play company doesn't do anything because Mortarion doesn't have the play company keyword. So that Mortarion's Anvil like doesn't have a function. It's just it's there, but you can ignore it.
It described Mortarion. He is the anvil.
Yeah, he sure is an anvil. But what that function means is that this is a ferryman list, and it does not actually have access to the anvil stuff, which is an important distinction because those 2 factions have some differences.
Yeah, it's a good call out. For troops, this player I should probably read the name of the player. Jamie Beaton.
Yes,
Jamie Beaton won the over the top GT.
Yeah, congrats to him. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so he brought 3 units of Poxwalkers for his troops, 2 minimum units and 1 18 Poxwalker sized unit. For elites, he bought 3 Death Shroud and then 2 units of 5 Blight Lords, each of them with a flail and a Blight Launcher. If you were running Blight Lord Terminators before, you were probably running this same unit just as 1 big one instead of 2 small ones. Let's see. He's got a Foul Blight Spawn, which is no longer as strong as it was, but still a pretty solid pick in my book. And a Tallyman, which went from a garbage unit to a actual useful one.
Yeah, the Tallyman's really good now.
Let's see. For a fast attack, he brought a Flesh Mower Bloat Drone, and rounded off, he got 2 Plague Burst Crawlers, which not as strong as they were as compared to the previous Codex, but still pretty damn good, especially for the points cost.
And just as a note for the Ferryman, that is the faction that we all really liked. That's the faction where their warlord trait is the droning, which I believe he took.
He did. He put on the Lord of Contagion.
Yep. And the Lord of Contagion, of course, has the bigger aura on it. And then their stratagem is you get to actually pick one of those elite characters and increase the range of their auras by 6 inches.
Yep. So your Foul Blight Spawn can be extra stinky, or the Tallyman can. Oh god, what does he do again? Ben, help me out.
The Tallyman. So the Tallyman doesn't actually have a natural aura. He picks a unit and gives them +1 to hit. Okay. But he took the Tollkeeper, which does make him generate an aura of units within 6 inches of him in shooting. Their 6 is double hit. So if you really needed to on a turn to push it out to 12 inches, you could. Although honestly, for this list, I doubt that ever happened because like it's a bunch of Poxwalkers and Terminators that want to be charging at people.
Yeah. One thing to note on the Foul Blight Spawn, he took the relic that kind of gave him his old ability. So in the fight phase, just if you're within 6 inches of him, you're an enemy unit, you fight as though you didn't charge. You actually have to fight last.
Is that an aura or is that a pick a unit?
While enemy unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, the unit cannot make any use of rules that allow it to fight first, never count as having made a charge move this turn, irrespective of any abilities that unit may have. So
Yeah, that's also like particularly heinous because it turns off shock assault. So like your blood angel unit that charges it, like you don't get +2 attacks. You get to sit there and be sad and fight last. You don't get 5 attacks tomorrow. You get 3 attacks tomorrow, and you have to fight after the Terminators punch you.
I guess it's not actually fight last because you're just not charging.
Yeah,
but still that means your opponent, they get the first hit.
Yep. Is that an aura or is that not an aura?
It is an aura.
It is an aura?
Yes.
Okay. I actually don't believe the ferryman stratagem works in that. I think it actually specifically says auras on their data sheet, but I don't remember off the top of it.
The other thing I wouldn't sleep
Like
on
one
is
of that model's aura abilities, and it gains the aura ability. Yeah, so you but keep in mind the ferryman's stratagem, you have to use it in the command phase.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So your opponent gets to know it's coming. They might not be able to play around it because
it's fair. Does it last through your next command phase? Or is it just for your turn?
Till your next command phase.
Gross. So you can just have that as 12 inches if you're willing to just like throw command points away. And then you can never ever charge him. My goodness. All right.
So
I feel like that might not be correct, but
what's also interesting about it too is and this is across all the lists, but everyone who brought the Plague Rush crawlers brought entropy cannons because of the damage output, and they don't lose the 1 BS or delete shooting skill, which I think is it's a good change and it's interesting.
Yeah, entropy crawlers with entropy cannons all around in these lists. It's real good.
Yeah, I mean, I used them in a game a couple weeks ago, and it was so different than how I had played Death Guard in the past because I could put them on a backfield objective, and they could be useful with their mortar, their slugger, and their entropy cannons. They can still shoot things at long range, and I'd use my Terminators and Plague Marines as more of a screen, as opposed to letting people charge them as when you could in the past when they were a lot tougher. When I say people, I'm talking troops or backfielders that aren't going to 1-phase it or 2-phase it.
Okay, so yeah, as of now, the way it's written, it does appear that the ferryman's ability works on that. I would not be surprised if that gets FAQ'd because that seems heinous to ever even think about trying to play against that with certain armies.
Yeah, so what you can end up doing is basically combining the droning with the stratagem Flash Outbreak, which lets you pick one Plague Company unit. And until your next command phase, they can count as having one contagion from another unit from the same company. So you're using your hyper-mobile blight drone with the Flesh Mower, and you're just basically using it as like a guided missile. Just send it out forward and then just pop in Flash Outbreak on it, and then just using it to just really disrupt your opponent's plans.
For sure.
So let's talk about the second list, Death Guard list that we saw. Second Death Guard list, again, from Mortarion. And this time it's a battalion of the Inexorable Plague Company. His 2 HQs are a Lord of Contagion and a Malignant Plaguecaster. Let's see. For one of his relics, he brought the Plague Skull of Lothila. For his
it's a mortal wound bomb.
Yeah. For his troops, it's 2 minimum size Plague Marines, 1 20-man of Poxwalkers. And then elites, he's got a unit of Blight Lords, 5-man, a unit of Death Shroud, and a Foul Blight Spawn. I believe for the Terminators, yeah, he took just one flail, no Blight Launcher. But the champion did bring Plaguebringer's a relic.
For which unit we're talking about?
Plaguebringer's
a relic bile sword, yeah.
Which he spent the command point of champion of disease to give it.
Yeah. So it's an upgraded power sword, bile sword, that has like the added rider that any models that you kill with it counts as 2 models dead for morale purposes.
It also gets 2 damage.
Yep.
Yes, it also gets 2 damage.
And then there's a unit of Death Shroud Terminators, a Foul Blight Spawn, again with Revolting Stench Vats because it's truly incredible. He also upgraded its gun with Vicious Death, or Viscous Death, which is
rerolling
when
number
his
attacks.
Yeah, the flamer rerolls number of attacks. Also, very importantly, gets +1 strength, so it's strength 8, which means it's wounding T4 Marines on 2s, or T5 Marines in contagion range on 2s.
Rerolling ones because plague weapon.
Yep. Then he brought a Chaos Whirlwind Scorpius, and of course, you can't leave home without him. 2 Plague Burst Crawlers with entropy cannons. Yep. It should be noted that the Inexorable's Warlord trait, which again I believe is on a Lord, is on a Lord of Contagion, is if you are within the contagion range of I believe it's called Unstable Sickness, Ferric Blight. All Inexorable attacks against you have an extra armor penetration. So the player of this list, who was, what was
Courtney
this guy's
Thompson.
name? Courtney Thompson, yeah. So Courtney looked at Death Guard's ability to prevent their opponent from moving, and instead of choosing to mess with movement, just said, what if I kill my opponent's models instead? And it turns out that's also viable because
you are affecting their movement. You can't move something that isn't there.
Very true. Yeah, also lots of Plague Marines in this list.
I respect Plague Marines.
What's also worth noting is that no one's brought
2 5 units, rather, I should say. Not lots. Sorry, go ahead, Omar.
No one's brought the Relic Man Reaper on the Death Shroud.
That's true. That we were really into. No one's brought it.
Which I'm shocked at because I've used it in games and it's stupid.
Yeah, there's probably an argument to be made that they're killy enough as it is, and you don't actually need it, and that's like super fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about like just overkill.
I mean, there isn't a kill like it.
There isn't a kill like it, but it's also like if you gonna overkill something that you would have already killed with your regular weapons.
Did you really kill it more?
Yeah, you didn't kill it harder. It doesn't hurt your enemy more. You know, they're still dead at the end of it. And actually, if anything, it hurts you because you're out like 1 CP for buying an extra relic.
This is a really fascinating list to me. With all that indirect fire, because that's a relic. Chaos Whirlwind Scorpius, 2 Plague Burst Crawlers is a ton of high AP indirect fire.
Yeah, because I mean, like we all remember when the Whirlwind Scorpius was broken for about like 3 weeks with the Ultramarines Sergeant Cronus. They fixed that interaction, but the Whirlwind Scorpius is still in an army that is severely lacking in solid non-line of sight shooting. The Whirlwind Scorpius does bring a pretty good punch, because if you don't know what it is, it's a whirlwind, but it just shoots twice.
And more on this list, I just want to say something that I made a mistake in a previous episode when we were talking about Death Guard, about with Poxwalkers and Mortarion, saying that you can use Mortarion to reroll their hit rolls. You can't. Mortarion's thing is core or character only, and Poxwalkers don't have core. So that's my bad. That being said, 20 Poxwalkers for 1 command point still put out 6 mortal wounds in the fight phase, which is disgusting for a 100 point unit. So it's not like a unit that you're even allowed to ignore.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Poxwalkers, so I like Plague Marines. I actually think these should just be 2 more units of 20 Poxwalkers. Having probably the reason I bought this book is that. Do you disagree?
No. I was gonna say I agree. You are correct. I think that Poxwalkers are nonsense.
Having played some tabletop simulator of Death Guard, I think Poxwalkers are like it's like the subtle thing that's causing them to win games that isn't obvious. The fact that they're 5 points for a 4-wound model with 6 of Feel No Pain is just.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the hidden star, because like you can look at like this book and see Mortarion's stat line and be like, holy shit, like that guy's a monster, and then you can just gloss right over Poxwalkers, And
Yeah,
not
but you
even
can
give
then
it a
also
second
put
thought.
80 of them in your list and like not even realize that you're spending points on them. They're so efficient. They're toughness 4. They have feel no pains.
Immune to morale.
Immune to morale is huge.
It kind
And
of
you can
bums
buff
me
them with
out.
tightness too, right?
It kind of bums me out that all of my Poxwalkers I converted into Plague Bearers and put them on 32 millimeter bases.
Yeah, and then the wild thing is that like, all right, they don't have the shooting of Plague Marines, but with that stratagem, they're just as deadly as Plague Marines in combat, unless you're specifically kitting out the Plague Marines for combat. But then the Plague Marines get more expensive. So sure.
I mean, let's be realistic here. If you have a 5-man squad of Plague Marines, their shooting isn't adding much to the conversation anyway.
Yeah.
Unless you're shooting at Foxwalkers, because bolters are actually good against them. Oh, and in this list though, actually, I guess in this list specifically, there is an argument for the Plague Marines because adding 1 AP to every weapon in the army is like pretty real. Like that does really change the math on like Plague Marine shooting and fighting. The fact that they're relying on like actually just getting wounds through and not like just doing mortal wounds is like the extra AP does a lot for them, and it doesn't do anything for the Poxwalkers.
And so one of the other things that kind of make Poxwalkers insane, so they have a 1 CP stratagem. You roll dice up to 7 dice, only 1 per dead guy, and on a 3+ you get to reanimate a guy. But you use that in the command phase, and you score holding objectives at the end of the command phase. So like,
it's the Necron thing.
Yeah.
Surprise! OBSEC models reanimating before I score points. I'm setting on objectives I wasn't 2 seconds ago. Yeah, you can do nonsense with that.
Or reach out and grab an objective that like
run an injured unit behind a wall with the plan on beginning of your next turn, reanimating them out from behind the wall to hold an objective. Like there's so much nonsense that you can do.
You can be
it's
very
insane.
cheeky with it.
It's funny. So they have the secondary where they can corrupt objectives.
Mm-hmm.
And like I did that. I like put them on the objective, corrupted it, took the D3 mortal wounds, killed the 2 guys that were visible, so I was behind the objective. Next, and they were back on the objective.
No, that's oh no, I hate it already.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
Let's cleanse our palate here with the next list.
Wait. I don't think we can be done with talking about this list though, because we also need to talk about the Terminators, because there's a lot of them in this list. There are a lot of them in the list before that. Why is everyone putting like 10+ Terminators in every list? What's the secret sauce that makes them work?
I think they're just hard to kill. 1.
They're T5 and 3 wounds.
And
with
they
-1
4 up in vulnerable staves.
And they get to say -1 to damage.
Yep.
They are so much tankier than a normal Terminator. It's hilarious. And they're like not significantly more expensive. I mean, they are. But they're more than twice as tanky for less than twice the point cost, and their killing power is the same, if not better.
Imagine
than like a normal Chaos Terminator, which is like terrifying.
People were already big on like Blade Guard veterans, like, oh, you like if you just bring like 10 of them, that's a solid core to start like any Space Marine list. Now imagine if every single one of those Blade Guard vets also had -1 damage, and also.
Oh no, that is the same unit, isn't it?
And also, one of their swords was a flail where any damage just spilled over.
The flails are gone. Remember that the flails don't spill over anymore.
You god damn it.
Well,
it's a stratagem that lets you do that.
Yeah, you can do it for the whole unit if you want to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You can do it for a whole unit with a stratagem, and I'm okay with that.
It's not worth it though, because all the swords do 1 damage. But anyway, yeah, the Terminators just seem insane to me. They're so ridiculously tanky.
Well, Benjamin, all the swords do 1 damage, but with Death Shroud, it's multi-damage, and that applies to that stratagem applies to Death Shroud too.
Yeah, but the Death Shroud can't take flails, so that's not what we were talking about.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying the stratagems. I think the stratagems a better trade-off than the flails.
Yeah, for sure. I think Death Shroud's also got the reaping swing, which is silly. I think that Blight Lords are incredible. Death Shroud are good too. We're seeing most lists taking Lords than Death Shrouds, which makes sense to me. Death Shrouds are nice because they have the bodyguard ability, so like even like a single Death Shroud left like can just like hang out with some characters and make them obnoxious to kill. And then of course they're heinously dangerous in melee. They're very slow. This is not like our classic like Space Marine melee threat unit. that's like terrifying in melee and also like gonna get in there, like they have to walk at you or deep strike and make a 9-inch charge with no bonuses. So that's not great.
Yeah, no,
So-
it's not like White Scars, like Blade Guard veterans, where they're advancing every turn and getting like +3 to their charge rolls.
Right.
Oh, it also should be. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Which does mean that if you like, I don't know, like have custodes, and you could like say that unit's minus D6 to your charge, you're probably actually just stopping them. It's not like White Scars or anything else where it's like +2 and re-rolling and blah blah blah. No.
That does work on them, doesn't it? That's like the last phase that you can actually affect their movement.
Actually, you brought up a very good point.
So can you Tangle Foot Grenade their charges? I know you can't Tangle Foot Grenade their advances, but
You can Tanglefoot Grenade a charge.
you can probably Tangle Foot Grenade a charge.
You can Tanglefoot Grenade.
Well, Kevin looks that up because we're talking about charges. I want to point out that this faction of stratagem is 1 command point to make a charge -2 on the roll, which is stupid. So you
Nope,
don't need.
Ignores penalties to charge rolls. Good.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, can't Tangle Foot Grenade them, but they can Tangle Foot Grenade you. They have their strategy is 1 command point for -2 to charge a unit. So
Well,
speaking of like those like scary things coming out of Deep Strike, like you can like look at a White Scars unit and be like, no, you need to roll an 11 on your charge roll out of Deep Strike. Like that's
so the
You
other
know
thing,
what that you know what that really just strikes me as is like, you ever seen that one GIF of like a Spider-Man actor like in Times Square getting a tip, and then like he pulls the mask off and it's just Andrew Garfield and he's like, yes. That's what it feels like to me, where the Death Guard player is actually Andrew Garfield and he's getting hype over like a $10 tip.
So the other thing I want to say is, even though they're slow and you have to deep striking a Death Guard Terminator unit isn't as scary. It's going to take a lot to remove them from the board once they're down there. And while yes, they're slow, they're far more likely to make the charge towards the objective after a round of movement.
Do you mean
Yeah.
walking them across the table, not deep striking?
Well, no, I'm saying I'm comfortable deep striking a unit of Death Guard, and with the understanding that I might fail that charge.
Oh yeah.
Right,
no,
and then even walking them across the table is fine too, because they're hard to remove. And if you're building your list right, there are a bunch of threats. Right, if you don't kill my Blight Lords, you're gonna have to kill Mortarion. Like you're gonna have to focus on one or the other.
All right.
It's just my
Shall we talk about this last list?
Yeah, let's talk about this last list. This last list is courtesy of Ashley Reed. Ashley Reed came in 4th place. And their list is so this actually does not have Mortarion in it, but this is another inexorable battalion with a Lord of Virulence, with the Fugaris Helm, which is +3 inches to their auras. 2 Malignant Plague Casters, no relics or anything like that on them. And then just go and lean in hard to the Plague Marines here. So you got
They
one
have
unit of let's see, 3,
10?
so
8,
one unit
10.
of
1 unit of 10,
It's 10.
2 units of 10.
It's actually 3 units of
It's
10
3 units of 10. It's just 30
with
Plague Marines.
various accoutrements.
Yeah.
Let's see. One of them's got 2 Blight Launchers, Flail of Corruption, Sigil of Decay, and then next one's got 2 Blight Launchers with a Flail of Corruption and no Sigil, and then the next one is 2 Blight Launchers. And so they all have 2 Blight Launchers and a Flail of Corruption. One of them has a Sigil of Decay.
Yep.
It's just a whole bunch of Blight Launchers and Flails.
Yep.
And
And
really
then
needed them.
one big ass unit of Blight Lords, 10-man unit, 2 Flails, 2 Blight Launchers. Everybody else has got an Axe and a Kami Bolter. A 4-man unit of Death Shroud, and then we got
5, including the champion.
5 Death Shroud. We got a Biologist Putrefier, a Foul Blight Spawn, and a Tallyman, taking advantage of the fetid Varians thingamabobber that lets them all take up like 1 slot.
Yep. The Blight Spawn and the Tallyman both have relics as well. The Tallyman has the Tollkeeper relic, the extra hits for range attacks, and the Blight Spawn's got the Revolting Stench Fats that we always see him take.
Yep, and the Putrefier has Arch Contaminator Warlord trait.
Oh, I totally missed that. Yep.
Which is the
For reroll all wind rolls.
all failed wounds on plague weapons.
And the Putrefier. Yeah, the Putrefier is the character that gives out the old Blades of Putrefaction ability.
Yeah, so
which is really good on 10-man Terminator and or Plague Marine squads.
So speaking to Omar's like previous if you want to shoot, kill one unit of these Plague Marines, well, you got to deal with the other 20 Plague Marines now, and then you also got to deal with the 10 Blight Lords and the 5 Death Shroud, and there's just a lot of just basically just dropping bricks on the table, saying deal with it.
So while this list is really scary, I am happy that like big blocks of Plague Marines have done well this early, because that was one of my original concerns with the Codex, was just like, man, Poxwalkers and Terminators might just like make Plague Marines not relevant. But playing them like this makes sense to me. Like these big blocks, you have so much stuff in the way of your special weapons. Also the champions all have power fists. So the champions hit pretty hard in combat.
What did Sigils of Decay do last edition?
The Sigil of
Decay?
Yeah, because right now each time an attack is made with a bolt weapon by a model in this unit, an unmodified 6 automatically wounds the target.
Not that. All right, the Corn was reroll charges. The Slanesh one was Death of the False Emperor.
I think it was a leadership debuff.
Oh yeah.
It was a -1 leadership, because you would put it on Raptors.
Yeah, they were all really bad. But now this one's really good.
So one of the things, and I can now actually kind of see taking a max size Plague Marine unit if we're trying to do this, is like, so they could move, and part of the chapter tactic for Death Guard is you're always standing still, so you're always rapid firing.
Chapter tactic, they're a legion.
How dare you?
Part of their legion trait.
What kind of chaos player are you? I'm sorry, continue.
Is that they're always rapid firing. So
hold on. With the whole, let me show you something. If you want to talk about,
okay, which one?
If you want to talk about true chaos players here, look at this OG 3rd edition Chaos Codex that I just found.
Chris,
who owns the Codex? Who is the true chaos player here?
Yeah, one of you is a Death Guard Codex, and it's not Chris. Therefore, we should probably let Kevin finish his point about the Death Guard Codex that he has.
All right, fair enough.
That's actually really good. That's like, because it can let you shoot up. I have to reevaluate.
It's auto wounds on everything, right? It's not just like auto wounds on infantry. It's just like 6s to hit wound.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes! That's a yikes. That's really good. Man, that's the sort of thing where it's like if you're shooting at something big and you have a Mortarion around, you just like reroll all of your non-6s because your 6s are double hitting and also auto wounding.
Yep, you just fish for those 6s. It's like how you should play Gilliman too.
Yeah.
Now, it is not loyal Space Marine bolters, so they still have no AP. So we're not.
Now we're the next roll. We have AP1 if you're within range, in contagion range, and you can make them plague bolters, which gives them.
I feel like by the time I'm getting my contagion range like in range, I'm in melee and I'm doing it already. Like I'm thinking about this being good as like a early turn moving around. Maybe that's incorrect.
No, that's fair.
If it was a really good thing, all 3 of his squads would have sigils and not just one.
Well, this is the first tournament, right?
You could sack like 1 or 2 Plague Marines to bring the sigil if you really wanted to build around the sigil. I think the way that this list is constructed, the sigil is just like, well, if I have like an extra 10 points, I guess I'll just spend
keep in mind that Death Shroud Terminator squad took the war gear to give themselves +3 inches on their contagions, and we also have the psychic power for +6 inches on their contagions. So that Death Shroud Terminator squad can have a 12-inch contagion range. So if you like turn 1 advance them on turn 2, they're going to be able to advance into contagion range for like a large chunk of your opponent's army. Like 12 inches off a unit is a big bubble,
especially with a big base.
So like you can be a turn 2, just be like, all right, you're in contagion range, like, which is also -1 toughness. So all of a sudden now your bolters are strength 4, AP1, 1 damage. Your opponent's -1 toughness. Your 6s to and then like you can make them into plague weapons, which then makes your 6s to wound do even more armor penetration because that's the Lord of Ruin's ability. like baseline. He's a 9-inch aura of 6 wound with plague weapons, do extra armor penetration.
Did he have an
Like,
arch
that squad's just
contaminator?
like,
Yes, he did.
yeah,
so
and you
the
can
arch
also reroll
contaminator
your
is
wound
just-
rolls. If you're
Yeah,
looking for-
rerolling everything but a 6th wound.
Yeah, those Blight Lords can like deep strike in and just like actually pick up almost anything with bolters. Because the Lord of Virulence needs to be on the table to give the trade out, though.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if anybody remembers this, like, actually, like, remembers playing the Blight Lords. But back with the old codex, like, dropping a brick of Blight Lords on the table and shooting at something using Veterans of the Long War, while it wasn't, like, the greatest use of them, like, it also, more importantly, wasn't bad. And this is basically a better version of that. Granted, there's a few more moving parts that you got to like set up, but you know the payoff is still there, and it's a greater payoff too.
Yeah, this list is the list that a lot of Death Guard players wanted to be good, just like Plague Marines, Plague Terminators, some HQs, no tanks, no Mortarians.
This is
like,
anybody who read the Horus Heresy books. This is all that they wanted the Death Guard codex to be.
This is Death Guard as Death Guard is meant to be played. Let's talk about the willing to play. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Even if this list isn't like may not be end up being the best Death Guard list, if this is like a viable tier 2 option, that's a good thing.
This list looks really good to me, like really, really good. It might suffer as people adapt to dealing with Death Guard because literally everything is a Marine with disgustingly resilient. Let's talk about the willing to playcasters for just a second, because this is a psyker that makes me as a Thousand Suns player a little bit upset, because it's a psyker that, without breaking a sweat, outputs more mortal wounds than anything the Thousand Suns psychers can do baseline. Because every time they cast a psychic power on a 7-up, they do mortal wounds to the nearest thing within 12, which means that they're just like putting out extra mortal wounds every turn. Their psychic powers are like ridiculously good. In this case, they both took Miasma Pestilence, which is pick a unit, make it -1 to be hit. That way, if he loses one, he can always make one of his big blocks of units -1 to be hit. Or if they're in like different places, he can have some options. Then one of them took Gift of Plagues, which is you pick a unit and you make them have a 6-inch larger aura on their contagions than normal. And the other one took Putrescent Vitality, which, if I remember correctly, is pick a Death Guard unit, give them +1 strength, +1 toughness.
Yep.
Just in case your Blight Lord Terminators are struggling to survive a toughness 5, they can be toughness 6. This also lets your Plague Marines punch at strength 5, which is silly.
Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that with the ways the JW changed it, it doesn't mean that Power Fists are punching at strength 10 anymore. It just means strength 9.
Yeah, but they're strength 9 against targets that are -1 to be wounded, which means that anything that is toughness 5 or lower is getting wounded on 2s. And anything that's toughness... Everything else is being wounded on 3s. There is no model in the game other than Titans, which don't get played, that are not getting wounded on 3s by this weapon. And they still have veterans. Like, you can still just pop veterans along where it costs 2 command points now, but like sometimes you gotta.
There was no way that veterans wasn't going to 2 CP. Let's be real.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, it was too good.
So let's what I want to talk about now is I want to just briefly touch on the Harlequin list that managed to actually take a game off of one of these monstrous Death Guard lists. And I want to talk a little bit about what we are looking at with the lists that we're playing and how we plan on dealing with Death Guard.
Yep. All right. So let me go over the Harlequins list. James Wardle took 3rd place with his battalion of Frozen Stars Harlequins. He's running 2 Shadow Seers and a Troop Master, and they've all got like everyone is got all of their different things.
Of note, one of the Shadow Seers took the Domino Shroud, which is at the beginning of any phase. It can basically just like move 12 inches. It's more complicated than that, but it basically comes down to he can move about 12 inches at the beginning of any phase.
Which is like one-time use?
Yeah. But that's like really important when you're worried about these like slow-moving Death Guard armies, because either if they jump on him, he can just get out of the way, or if they jump on someone else, he can all of a sudden put the thing that got jumped on in range of all of his auras. Because he's got a bunch of like sick auras.
Yep. He brought a shit ton of troops. He brought 3 times 50. He brought 50 Harlequin troops.
I think
Yeah.
it's 9-mans. Yeah, they're 9-man squads.
So he brought 45.
Yeah.
No. It's 4 9s and 2 5s.
Oh god, you're making me do math.
All right.
46.
He brought many Harlequin troops.
He brought 46 of them. Basically, they're like half of them have the caress, half have the embrace. Like 10 of them in total have just the blade. They all got shuriken pistols, so this isn't just like the usual like Harley boat fusion spam that we've seen. He got a Death Jester, and then the requisite Skyweavers with Haywire cannons, and then
Unit of 5, a unit of 4, and a unit of 2.
Yep, and 3 Star Weavers for transport, which means that a lot of his troops are moving on foot, which is fine because they're Harlequins and they move 7 inches base, advance with no problem.
It's 8. Harlequins move 8.
They move 8, they advance no problem, and they have flip belts, so terrain means nothing to them.
So a couple of things that really jump out at this list. So first of all, he cut down on Skyweavers because Skyweavers have a bunch of damage to attacks and melee, and that's bad against Death Guard. They're still heinous against everyone else and fine against Death Guard, but they're no longer as efficient in killing in melee, so he cut down on those. And then he also took all the fusion guns off of his list because fusion guns just don't really work against Death Guard. They just actually don't do very much.
Yeah, so this brings up a interesting thought of how do you adapt to Death Guard? So
yes, the other thing he did is the Harlequin weapon that people usually take is Strength 4, AP 1, D3 damage, and he took all of those out and he went to Embraces and Caresses. Caresses are Strength 5, AP 2, 1 damage, which is really excellent baseline against Death Guard. Harlequins have 5 attacks each, so like you don't need to do anything to that unit to just like charge in and like actually pick up a scary number of Plague Marines. And if you're in range of your reroll all your wound rolls aura, like you're just killing the whole unit, which is nuts. And then the other 2 squads that are like large have Embraces, which are Strength 4, AP 3, 1 damage, which need the aura a lot more, but also really benefit from any sort of spells you want to cast on them or stratagems you want to give them, to like bonuses to wound or stuff like that, because the extra armor penetration ends up really paying off against like the Plague Marines. So these squads are like, they're slightly worse against not Plague Marines because they don't have the multi damage attacks, but not like horribly so. Like they have more armor penetration they would normally have and more strength than they would normally have. And then he just like everything does 1 damage because Harlequins don't have access to like 3, 4, 5 damage weapons, which is what you need to be effective against Plague Marines. So he's just like, all right, well, everything does 1 50 times. And this is just like what you need to do in order to be effective against Death Guard. So he really moved his list to target Death Guard.
Yeah. So against like what would have been like a meta list of Space Marines like last month, this list might have fallen a little flat. Like, could it have worked? Yeah, but you're losing out on the efficiency because you're not bringing the multi-damage weapons. But instead,
I still
like
think it's fine though. You're like, you're strength 5.
Yeah, you just have to roll a lot more dice. You know, it just might be a little bit more difficult than what it would have been with the multi-damage weapons. But this is how you adapt to things that are hard to kill. This is how you adapted against what were the boogie, like a Castellan, Knight Castellan.
Yep.
You know, you
gotta that thing.
You gotta force them to make saves. Like, it's the whole death by 1,000 cuts. Like, yeah,
or don't give them targets.
You can roll 6 damage on your laser cannon, and you know, but like that Castellan just has to roll a 3 up, and that 6 damage doesn't do anything anymore. Whereas if you try to make him roll like 70 3 up invols, he's gonna fail about a third of those. You know, that's most of the wounds off of a Castellan. You know, it's a similar story here where, all right, on paper, that 10-man unit of Blight Lords, very intimidating. It's a 2-up armor save, it's 4-up invul save. You know, they're 30 total wounds, and they're at T5. You know, maybe they're in cover, who cares? But like, take like, I don't know, like the biggest dickest like intercessor squad with like rapid fire shooting, like double tapping, and then like Gilliman's over there. Like, it's not like that's how you got to take them down. You can't just charge in like your Blade Guard in there, and because their Blade Guard are just gonna fall flat in their face.
They deal 2 damage, and that's nothing.
It's gonna do nothing. Even if you're White Scars, and it's turn 3, it's still
You do 2 damage, and it does nothing.
yeah, exactly.
You need Thunder Hammers on those White Scars.
But
Well, I mean,
but this also begs the question though, like how far can you swing that pendulum until it's too far? Until you're going from until you're just like bringing like Imperial Guard like 1,000 laser guns because the Death Guard are here.
So
Definitely don't do that because Imperial Guard full Death Guard.
What's interesting about that is there's an Imperial Guard list that only lost in there that lost 2 games, and it was to 2 of the Death Guard lists.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all infantry span.
Okay, so don't listen to my example, but
because they go to toughness 2, the bolters win them on 2s, and it's just a disaster.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. That's like you could take that little nugget where like, all right, this hardcore player, he found a lot of success by just shitting out attacks and just forcing the Death Guard player to make saves. How can I do that? Oh, I have 120 guardsmen. Those are a bunch of 1 damage weapons. And
they're not efficient.
They're not efficient, and you'd be sacrificing too much to, bring that bucket of dice. Granted, you're sacrificing a lot by playing Imperial Guard right now, but that's besides the point.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about what we're playing and like what you guys are looking to do. Because Chris, I mean, you're probably just gonna play Death Guard, but like you were also before talking a lot about how you're going to be playing White Scars a lot, and White Scars are really hurt by the Death Guard. Discussing the resilient role, like how would you like adapt? Like it's like you're not probably going to rip your whole list, but you might like drop a unit, add a unit. What do you thinking?
One of the key unit that I've been finding a lot of success with pre-Death Guard in my White Scars army has been Plasma Inceptors, and right now Plasma Inceptors don't do a lot. I mean, like you might get some decent value out of them against like that 10-man brick of Blight Lords, like maybe, but that's only because like you're getting 6 shots per dude per Inceptor, from the blast keyword. But other than that, I mean, like Plasma Inceptors, their value prop has gone down significantly, so they're probably you're not taking like 2 5-mans of them, or even 1 5-man. You might take like a 3-man, just as like to round out a list. Your Blade Guard veterans that might have formed the core of your thrust to control one side of the board. You can't really just have them advance and charge and feel confident that they're going to come out okay. But instead, what you're going to have to do like is lean on some other units that in your toolbox that might have the tools to better deal with it. Like if I was going up against a Death Guard army and I had my toolkit at my disposal, I might lean in more towards my Vanguard veterans with Lightning Claws, because they're 1 damage. They're gonna pump out like a bunch of attacks per guy, and they're gonna have the throughput and the math behind it to actually strip wounds off of that unit of Plague Marines. Blight Lord, Stuff Shroud, no, they're not going to, but like
so how
So
many? Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
my question to you is: there's a Mortarion on the other side of the table. Do you ignore it? Do you kill it? Do you have the ability to kill it now?
Well,
Lightning Claws are real bad against Mortarion.
yes, they are. But like thinking about how my list was constructed before, my only real anti-armor or anti-big thing was Eradicators. I'd bring like 1 or 2 units of Eradicators. Now, Eradicators, they could either target like a unit of Terminators or they could target Mortarion. If you target Mortarion, you can try to play the game more on your terms, because Mortarion has the reach to, he has the mobility to get over to you and try to disrupt your plans. Whereas a Blight Lord unit, they sped up a little bit to 5 inches, but 5 inches is still really fucking slow. So that's still something that you can maneuver around. It's just that once they maneuver into where they want to go, it's going to be real hard to shift them. So I think that question really depends more on the mission.
So I would definitely say for all Space Marine players, you should really think very hard about putting Plasma Inceptors in your list right now. I think that they're not. So they're very good, which is, but like Death Guard, I think are going to be dominant, and I think they're really bad against Death Guard. They're so inefficient.
Inceptors are still very good. It's just such a bad matchup against Death Guard that it's almost not worth it anymore because you're gonna see Death Guard. It's like you're gonna see that Knight Castellan on the top table, or like on the road to there. Like you're gonna fight a Death Guard army now.
And even though you're going to fight a Death Guard army, you should still factor in having at least 3. Pumping out, like, it's a lot of shots, especially against something like a 10-man Terminator squad. It's a lot of shots. You're not, if you're winning them, you're winning them on 3s as opposed to anything else. It's got high AP, which is also good because you're at least triggering their invul as opposed to having them be a 2-up save.
Or
it barely kills 2.
It does barely kill 2.
It barely kills 2.
So here's the other thing, though. You're not just going to play Death Guard.
Right, of course, but you have to be aware of what's going to be in the top tables. If you're going to a GT, you need to be Death Guard, and you really don't want to have spent, because they just went up in points, too. They're like, what? What's that unit cost?
They're like 55 a piece now.
You're right. Yeah, you're right, actually.
Like, what's that unit cost? Like 300 points?
Yeah, that's...
You want a 300-point unit to kill a Terminator? 2 Terminators?
No, you're right. Right. I forgot they had gone up.
I think the Plasceptor is a great example of what was an outstanding utility unit. And I think it still is against every army except Death Guard.
Utility unit, you just murdered things with it. It was a workhorse. You just killed whatever you needed.
It's a great utility unit.
God, your definition of utility is skewed.
It deep strikes and doesn't charge. It's a utility unit.
The other thing I would say for Space Marine players is if you're running Eradicators, it's time to move to heavy melter rifles. Mortarian's going to be -1 to be hit anyway, so it's not like the -1 to hit actually affects you. And the +2 damage is so important against both him and the rest of the army.
Mathematically, in every army except White Scars, the heavy melta was the play anyway. Because
they are more expensive. Like there is something to be said for like it is just more points. But now it's just you have to, like, you need heinous amounts of firepower to kill Mortarion.
And don't get me wrong, if you're not killing Mortarion, like, you're gonna need them to kill like Terminators. Because I don't see a Death Guard player bringing just Mortarion and no Terminators, because it's the whole target saturation thing where, like, if you bring just Mortarion and then like a shitload of like Plague Marines, yeah, the Plague Marines are scary and like Eradicators will kill them, but like the obvious target for the Eradicators is the one big guy.
Yeah. You know? And the Eradicators, they really want to be playing as far away as possible. Like, you don't want them to be 12 inches up, like, in the double tap melter range. You want them to be, like, as back far as possible, because, like, in the Death Guard matchup, you want to keep them alive as long as possible. And they're toughness 5. They have 3 wounds each. They're fairly resilient to, like, the 2 Plague Burst Crawlers that every Death Guard list is apparently bringing. It will take a while for them to knock them all down, especially with, like, an Apothecary picking them back up. But if you put them, like, right in front of you let your opponent army, like, just rapid fire into all of them, like, you're in a lot of trouble. So I think that the +2 damage from long range, which is enough to more or less guarantee that you're popping Terminators every time you shoot, just as long as you don't roll a 1 on your damage roll, is pretty huge.
So, can I talk about my list and the changes I'm making?
For sure.
So, I'm going to talk about the Death Watch list that I was playing previously. So, originally I had an Indominus kill team with Eradicators and then an Indominus kill team with Aggressors. I had moved that Aggressors into Plasma Inceptors because I learned how good they were. They're probably now actually going to go up to a second unit of Eradicator Indominus squads. One of the other things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to find some points to shave to put a max size Spectrus kill team with 5 infiltrators, 5 incursors. Yes. And those can be combat squad and still have this 6-inch 12-inch orb. You can't come within range. Because if you look at a lot of these lists, like part of their goal is like deep striking Terminators and then charging with them and being able to hold them back a turn. Like that's definitely something I think a lot of Space Marine players need to like. I heard a lot of like Nick Navati talking about how like that's something they wanted in their list, and I think Death Guard even make that more of the case. Like that's something you have to have in your Space Marine lists. Another important thing is as much as we want to be able to take the secondary that allows us to like just destroy Grey Knights and Thousand Suns. Grey Knights and Thousand Suns not a super large portion of the meta. I like Librarians again if you have good spells to cast with them baseline to actually try countering the like -1 to hit. Like Mortarion is a triple caster, double caster,
triple denier.
but he doesn't cast particularly well. So actually being able to like get a deny off like saying you're not -1 to hit or your aura range isn't +3 inches is something I'm valuing again.
Yeah, he's just 2d6 with no modifications.
Yeah. And like looking at some of these lists, like the two first Mortarion lists, the Mortarion was the only caster, so he has to be in range. He's like the person who's in range who you can deny, and like being able to say like you're not getting your additional range or you're not getting your -1 to hit off is very important for trying to kill him.
So what's your answer to Mortarion? Are you trying to kill him? Is it just trying to answer the rest of the list?
Deathwatch can kill him because they can say like I'm anti-Lord of War and I'm going to reroll my wound rolls against Lord of War, and we're just going to make it happen. But I think Deathwatch are uniquely situated to do that, especially if I'm bringing the second Eradicator squad.
Yeah, it might be time to bring the second Eradicator squad with melter rifles. I could see Death Guard pushing the meta in that direction. How about you, Omar? Oh, sorry, Kevin. You have more to say?
I have a second list to talk about, but let's move on to Omar first.
Okay. I keep my Ultramarines list that I had talked about a few times. The concept remains the same. The Eradicators already had heavy melter rifles. I'd probably drop the Plasma Inceptors with the point cost and use that to double down on more shooting output. I'd also switch my Stalker intercessors for infiltrators, or I'd switch out my incursors for infiltrators, and I'd switch out my Stalker bolt rifle intercessors for just another 10-man squad of regular intercessors, because I want to have a little more output of fire. And then any points left over from dropping the 300 point plasma squad, I would actually put into more Blade Guard veterans. And the reason behind that is, as Chris can attest, if you with Ultramarine specifically, if you throw 10 assault intercessors at someone and basically drop 2 CP for Gene Rot Might and the Ultramarines reroll to hit to fish for 6s, you can output a lot more damage. Like that unit hits a lot harder than it should, because that's 40 attacks. And I think between that, Blade Guard vets, and Gulliman, there is a world where I could kill Morty with the right positioning and mission. Killing Morty is not going to be my priority. The way I've always played that list is the assault intercessors, a captain and a lieutenant kind of go in their own direction and fight things, and then Gulliman has his own retinue. And in this specific case, it stays the same way. And if Morty wants a showdown with Gulliman and my Blade Guard vets, I've got Victor's Guard to help. Well, no, they can't keep him safe the way they did before. But I've got a lot of bodies between Morty and Gulliman. I'd make sure I'm charging Morty to get Gulliman to fight first. And the other thing, Gulliman might be able to stand up. If when he does die, there's a chance he stands up. I'm not saying it'll happen, but it's a 50% chance, which is better than nothing.
Gilman isn't like great against Morty.
Gilman does not hurt Mortarion in melee. It's like
what I'm saying. So no, Gulliman on his own, pointless. But Gulliman's going to be traveling with a retinue of Blade Guard vets.
But they also don't do any damage to Mortarion because
he's a little bit more than 2 damage, Ben.
Okay.
Well, and so listen, it's not that they don't. So here's the thing. Yes, they don't do as much. They don't do much damage to Mortarion. But what happens with the Blade Guards is you transhuman physiology them. You fish for you Gene Rot Might them, and
you can't reroll.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, you're
right.
Yeah,
no. Then I don't know. I don't think I kill Morty then. I might try to kill Morty with 1,000 cuts by using my intercessors to shoot, but I don't kill Morty.
You're not shooting at Mortarion either.
Yeah,
man.
I don't know the exact math on Gilliman. It's more than 2 wounds, but it's not.
It's not great. It's not great math.
No.
It's an uphill fight. Like, you might have something there with the assault intercessors and trying to fish for 6s with Gene Rot and the whatever the hell Ultramarine stratagem that is. But even then, that's probably better suited to trying to wipe out a unit of.
Oh, I mean, that wasn't going on Morty. That would be going on like Plague Marines or Terminators.
Right.
Yeah,
And again, that's shifting away from like the 2 damage, weapons, and just going like, oh, I have 1 damage weapons. Let me just get a bucket of dice for that thing, and then just make you make your saves. But how far is too far swinging in that direction? Like, obviously, you can't just bring like 60 assault intercessors. I mean, you could, but
Won't go great.
I think that just like teching into more heavy melta rifles is like a pretty reasonable place to go. Like that unit's pretty scary against a lot of lists.
And it also doesn't force you to buy new models, probably, because you can just say your eradicators are now heavy eradicators, and it's fine.
Make the barrels a little longer. It's fine.
Yeah. So actually, speaking of stuff like that, so I'm now I think 4 for 4 on me buying units and then them being invalidated by the latest codex, because so literally
how many plasma inceptors you got on the shelf?
I have 10 plasma inceptors that arrived literally the same week that they started dropping Death Guard codex leaks. I haven't even opened the boxes.
Oh no! All right, so I want to talk about my list real quick, which is an opposite situation of Chris's list because I think it's actually very well suited to fight Death Guard. I've been playing with different iterations of this same Sisters of Battle list. It's 2 detachments. One of the detachments is our Martyred Lady, which is whenever a unit dies, you get an extra miracle die at the end of the phase, and also if a unit is missing any models, it gets +1 to hit. It's got 6 5-man squads. Each squad's got a multi-melta in it. 3 Retributor squads with 4 multi-meltas in it each. A couple, all 3 of the named characters, because they have a named character for that faction. That's a captain and a lieutenant, and has a Celestine aura for +1 on invulnerable saves. Then also Celestine and the Triumph of St. Catherine. And then I brought a second attachment of the Bloody Rose. And previously that attachment was 2 9-man Repentia squads. And then some priests and stuff like that. And then there's a sprinkling of characters and Death Gold Assassins and stuff for secondaries. And I have cut all of the Repentia from the list because they are so unbelievably bad against Death Guard that I just don't want them anymore. And I'm bringing Zephyrim instead, which are insane against Death Guard. Everything you want against Death Guard. You're you're all toughness 5. Well, we're strength 3, but we reroll our wound rolls, so we don't care about that. They take -1 damage, but that's fine because we only had 1 damage attacks anyway. We just have 30 attacks a unit, 40 if we're in range for priest. AP3, so they're just chopping right through all the armor. They're worse than Repentia against things like Space Marines, but my list has so many melta guns in it that wasn't really a matchup I was terrified about not having the damage for. So yeah, they're a little bit worse against Space Marines or I don't know, any other big tank models, but not significantly. They also kind of answer the how do you kill 20 Necron Warrior problem. I actually think it may have always been correct to be bringing Zephyrin, but I wasn't really thinking of it until I started looking at the Death Guard list, the Death Guard spoilers coming out. And every time I played my sister's list, I was oh, this time featuring 5 fewer Repentia than last time. We went from 22 to 18 to 9 to 4 to 0. That was the 5 different iterations of the list. It's just all right, we're just pulling them out.
The 4's a real interesting number.
Yeah, I had a unit of 4 because when they die, so that one unit was in the Armored Related attachment because 4 is still choppy, and when they die, they give you 2 miracle dice if they're an Armored Related.
Wow.
Wait, 2 miracle dice?
Yeah, because when Repentia die, they give you miracle dice, and then they're Armored Lady, so they give you a miracle die. Yeah, it was sweet, but man, Death Guard, and they're 64 points, so we're just cutting them. So I have I've cut all the Repenters from the list because I was super unimpressed with how they were functioning against Death Guard. Not that I played them against Death Guard, but like we could just do like this is one of the cases where we can just do the math because the role for Repentia is they make their deep strike charges 100% of the time and then fight. And their fighting math against Death Guard is like pretty unimpressive. And Zephyrim into Death Guard is way more impressive. They're also tankier because we're not wiping out full units. Like pretty much no matter what you throw at them, you're just not going to kill a full unit of Terminators or something like that. Like if they bring the 10-man squad, but you'll kill 4 of them with Zephyrim, which is like pretty good. So that's why that was my big thing is I just looked at Repentia and was like, man, the arguable best unit in the game, but there's a unit that is very similar in function to them that is worse against most things, but is so much better versus Death Guard that I think it's worth taking it to the list to just like swap them around.
So I think what you're saying is sisters are good. And
sisters also. That's the other thing I'm doing is I am putting a combi flamer on one of my Retributor Superior models, so that if Mortarion ever wanders too close, that unit is eligible for Holy Trinity, which is you have to shoot with a flamer, a bolter, and a melta weapon. You get +1 to wound for a command point.
And hit, right?
No, just +1 to wound.
Oh.
But then for another 2 command points, your melta guns all do +1 damage and get +12 inches range. So that's great. And then for another command point, because he's a psyker, you can suffer not the witch and reroll all of your wound rolls. The plus range thing doesn't matter if he's within range of the combi flamer, but it does matter for just trying to kill him. And like without the flamer, that unit takes like 12 wounds off of him if he's within 18 inches of them. And that's without using Miracle Dice, and you're going to use Miracle Dice to make the first 2 saves. He fails 6s, so that they do 9 damage each. So he's just taking like 18, he's taking or 16 damage after resistances from his first 2 failed saves, and he just makes him feel no pains. And that's just, they have 12 melta gun shots with full rerolls in their wounds if he really wants to hit. So it's a pretty easy time for them to take him down. The scary thing for me isn't killing Mortarion, it's all the bolter shots shooting at my now toughness 2 sisters. That's the part of the list where I'm a little more concerned about playing against Death Guard.
So I'm convinced that the only reason why sisters haven't just been running completely amok is 1, there's been a worldwide pandemic, and 2, you just actually cannot get some of the models still.
Yeah, they're also heinously complex. Like, there's so many words. Like, there's so many words.
A good friend of mine plays them, and it's every time we're playing them, there's just all kinds of stuff we're trying to figure out. You have to. It's a lot.
Yeah, I've been playing reps with more or less the same list on TTS. I have like, I don't know, 15 games with this list or something like that at this point, and like, I still just like, oh right, I'm supposed to use this stratagem right now. The Miracle Dice shenanigans are really, really wild, and some of the things that they can do are like really disgusting, and like the things they can force people to do, like never split your shots against sisters, because whenever you're dealing with low light dice pools, the sisters player can just actually decide what happens. They just like can determine what you get to kill and what you don't, and it's really, really gross.
I watched one sister survive so many more shots than it was supposed to.
Yeah, like, here's like a Retributor squad, and you're gonna shoot like 6 las cannons at it because that's like the only thing that can reach it. Or I think it was Dark Reapers, and it was just like, all right, well, he made the first 2 saves, so we're just gonna force the last 3 to go pet through with 2 Miracle Dice and Moment of Grace, which is a busted stratagem, by the way. I could complain about that stratagem forever. Not really, because I'm not complaining. I get to play with it. It's insane. But moving beyond just like sisters, I think there's like some general things we can say about like adapting to the meta. Sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Kevin?
It'd be too long to talk about right now. So
okay, fair enough. So my big thing with the sisters list is I took a small hit to my non-Death Guard matchups with the Zephyrim, over Repentia to get a huge boost to my Death Guard matchup.
Yeah, so you're
And that's
still,
like the first
still...
thing. That's the first thing you want to look for is like, is there something that's like slightly worse against the field that's incredible against Death Guard? Because if there is, if you have Death Guard players in your area or you're going to a GT, like definitely do that.
Yeah, because you're also not gonna. You don't want to hamstring yourself too much against the fields, because if you just build entirely just to fight Death Guard, you're gonna. Chances are you're gonna end up going against like the anti-Death Guard paradigm, whatever that is. It's like how when people were bringing like at the height of Eradicator Mania, where people were just like, oh, look how points efficient Eradicators are. Yeah, but if you actually like took like too many Eradicators, you just like mathematically just didn't have enough shots to do anything with it, so you can adapt like too hard to it, because at the height of Eradicator Mania, Eradicators are really good at killing Eradicators, and then it's gonna come like the one player in your GT like schedule where it's a moving carpet of Termagants, and yeah, you have 18 Eradicators, man. You can slay the shit out of some like Hive Tyrant.
Yeah, here's 300 Plague Bearers. Nice Eradicators, you idiot. Push them at you.
You can skew hard in the opposite direction, so it's something to keep in mind, because you don't want to swing that pendulum too far to the right or to the left and be completely caught off guard by something that you weren't caught off guard before, Anybody have any thoughts to build on that?
No, I think that's a good way to end things.
Yeah, so Death Guard, real good.
Yep. And this could have been a blip. Maybe they're not this crazy, and just one tournament they way overperformed, but I don't think so, having read the book.
Having read the book, haven't seen the performance of these lists and the general concepts that they're building on, and just knowing what the other codexes have right now that to put up against it.
It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. What's the next codex after Dark Angels?
Drukhari.
Man, that Drukhari book better be fucking good.
For the previews, it's looking pretty crazy.
I just want Asdrubal Vect as an actual model.
Maybe someone needs to be Supreme Commander.
Yep. All right. So if nobody's got anything else, let's close it out. Thank you everybody to listening to this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. This will actually be released on audio this time. The last like 3 weeks we've had like crazy audio issues, and only one of them was my fault. But yeah, if you've been missing our audio podcasts, that's why. But thanks to my contributors, Kevin Lee, Benjamin Rubenstein, and Omar Q. This has been the 36 Charge Podcast. Goodbye for now, and
ring the bell, smash the like button.
That too.
But most importantly, don't roll any ones.